Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. I have a treat for you today, and I think probably the best way to sort of lead into this conversation, I want to share with you a story from 2017 that appeared in WLOX on WLOX News. I should be sharing a Sun Herald story, but the one that came up that I liked immediately was this one. And let me just read a little segment to you, and then we'll move to our guest. Okay, here's what it says from Biloxi. Many of the men and women who opened Mississippi's first dockside casino returned to Point Cadet Friday night. The property where they once worked had a new name. The new name, obviously, was Golden Nugget, and a much different look, but that didn't matter. The men and women tied to the Isle of Capri were back together, celebrating 25 years of friendship and 25 years of dedication to a company and to an industry. The Isle was Mississippi's first casino. It opened August the 1st, 1992, on a hot summer day on Biloxi's eastern tip. Thousands stood in sweltering heat, waiting for a chance to walk aboard two riverboats docked at Point Cadet and tempt Lady Luck. Tim Hinkley was an executive with the Isle of Capri. When he thinks about those lines, he smiles. That was my instant recollection, he recently said, that we might have something here, and we obviously did. And it goes on to talk about the work that Tim did to find this dusty parking lot in an old factory restaurant building, and had 4 months to get this thing up and running. What a story it is. And I'm thrilled now to have my friend Tim Hinkley on Coast Vue. And we're going to look back and kind of tell that story, see where he is today. This guy who made such a great impact to coastal Mississippi. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great, Rick. Thank you.
It's a good place to start. So where are you sitting right now? Tell people where you're sitting.
We got a little bungalow in Largo, Florida. We also have a house up in Traverse City, Michigan. It's a little colder up there, so we thought we'd come down here. And, we go back and forth. Right now, my grandbaby's outside. She's coloring the parking garage. And that's the dachshund you heard. So Mom and the other grandbaby are at the pool. And Gussie's in here doing an interview with some old friends. So life is good, man.
Hey, listen, I've told a story many times about you. You may not even remember this, but I was an operations director at the Sun Herald at the time, and I was engaged in the United Way annual meeting. And we came by to meet with you, and we wanted to kind of go over the kickoff. And you remember the annual meeting, the big kickoff for the year was always just a lot of glitzy pomp and circumstance. We wanted the next year to be bigger than the year before. So I came there, and we were going down this list. And one of the things on the list was balloons, helium balloons. We were going to release balloons during this meeting. And I said, yeah, we got balloons, and I put a check mark, and I went on, and I went to the next item, and you immediately said, no, stop. So how many balloons do you have? I said, 200 or 300. He said, you said, no, I can't remember the number, but it was closer to 10,000 than it was to 300. And it hit me. We made a note of it, and we did it as you suggested. And when I walked out of the meeting, it hit me that something that Roland Weeks and I talked about a lot, and that is that the kind of people that the casino industry would bring to the community would change the commitment to the community. It would change the kind of leadership. It would raise the bar for all of coastal Mississippi. And it was that one story about the balloons that hit me that, these guys are thinking at another level. Do you remember that meeting?
No, but I remember you telling the story, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
It's just one of those things that made a big impact. When you look back on your time here, we'll start with this, and then we'll go retrace some steps here. When you look back on your time here, what is the memory? How do you reflect on that memory here, that coastal Mississippi memory?
Yeah, it's still 30 some odd years later. It's still a great sense of accomplishment for just a lot of dedicated people. Because, we were kind of nomads. Business wasn't nearly as good up in the Quad Cities as we thought. We had a license down in Natchez. We thought, well, let's go down and take a look at it. And Yeah, I've been to Natchez before, and on the river, and it qualified. But there was a day, I think it was a Sunday. I said, I'm going to go over to the Gulf Coast and take a look at that and see what we think. And I turned the corner down to Point Cadet and went, what the hell are we doing in Natchez? And unfortunately, they had not passed the referendum for gaming in Harrison County at that time, but they were putting it back up on the blocks. And fortunately, it passed. And so we maneuvered right away with the Mississippi Gaming Commission and got our license right there at Point Cadet. It was the old, I can't remember the name of the restaurants, but the Thorntons were the owners. And we commandeered that site. And when you said 4 months, that was from moving an entire company down on boats and turning these river boats into land-based casinos. And we opened up the doors, and we had lines until the next casino opened a week later, just around the clock. So yeah, I thought we had something at that point.
I know you did. You came down, you worked closely with Bernie Goldstein, who was at the time known as the godfather of riverboats. Tell me about working with Bernie.
Bernie was he was born out of a family, married into a family of really a scrap company, and he had a law degree, but if anything, Bernie was a dreamer, and really nothing. There were no wrong ideas, and he'd throw stuff up against the wall and see what stuck, and that was a good marriage from his standpoint because he was learning the gaming industry as we all were. My restaurant's background. My background is restaurants, but we had a lot of commonalities in that. Let's try stuff. Let's be bold. Let's do our best to, all the P's and Q's of running a business, but most of all, let's take care and get the best employees we could. Which opening up number one was. We got the absolute best employees. And then what are you going to do with them? Market the hell out of the place. And, these little river boats that look like they were still on the Mississippi, we kind of made them look as much as Mississippi Gulf Coast as we could. And it worked. And then we took it on. And we went from there to, I think when I left, we had 18 casinos. We had a few in the UK. It was just a wild ride, but none of it happens without the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
What I remember, okay, first of all, you said you were in the restaurant business. You had spent 5 years as general manager with Shula's Restaurant, then Starline Cruise Dining as the chief operating officer for 5 years, and then you landed in coastal Mississippi. What I remember about you is the intense focus on employees, on culture, on brand, and on giving back to the community. Did I capture the essence of Tim in that quick description? In
a nutshell, it was the objective was pretty simple. We had the gaming guys, running casinos, slot machines, the tables, and that. We had really good people, but it was how are we going to market this? Because the other thing is that there were other companies lined up that were much bigger and more seasoned than we were. And I don't want to get gobbled up. I want to do everything we could right at the very beginning to make an impression. And we must have done a pretty good job because we had so many people that says, I might go somewhere else, but you're the Coast Casino.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me feel good. And the people that worked for us bought into it. I mean, this was their hometown. They wanted this to work. And we just couldn't match a better relationship with the local people, the local vendors. Everyone was so supportive. And like I said, we went from there.
I love the story. I remember it well about when you guys were in a brainstorming session about what were you going to name this? And of course, we had the Isle of Capri off of coastal Mississippi. Someone had the idea to drop the C and the E. But tell that story a little bit. That's a fascinating thing that stuck and became sort of the brand of the company.
We really, I think once we had it right in front of us, we went through all the gnashing, the arguing, what were the best things. I think part of it is just you had some new people that kind of get to know each other, and we're finding our way. But Bernie was in a lot of those sessions, and he says, he stood up there on a chalkboard, and I think we had Isle of Capri down. And it seems like he just erased it and just went, CAPRI. So let's call it that. And, of course, then you go through this. We can't do that. That's not what it's known for, yada, yada. Boy, were we wrong. So,
hey, let's do this. We're at the end of the segment. When we get on the other side, we'll pick the story up from right there. This is Tim Hinkley, who had the honor and the privilege of opening the first casino in coastal Mississippi after it was approved. Dockside Gaming was approved. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Coast Vue. On August the 1st, 1992. Boy, it sounds like that's a long time ago. In some ways, I can literally still remember looking at those long lines at the Isle of Capri. But the Isle of Capri opened on a hot summer day, and Tim Hinkley was there to sort of lead the process forward. And it was a big development in coastal Mississippi, and there was no looking back after that. Where we were when we went to break, we were talking about sort of the naming of the Isle of Capri. But you said, it took off after that. But talk about how important that brand was to you.
Well, we wanted something that would kind of set us apart, but also, it made us part of the community. Because they're not going to call it a grand casino or something like that. They're actually going to put together something that's about us. And it was easy for us to market because we wanted to be a kind of footloose, free, not these are casino guys. And talk about tables and all that kind of stuff. We wanted to have, obviously, what was going to be our bread and butter, but we also wanted something where it was going to be fun. We started with our staff. I said, guys, we're looking for people who got lots of energy and love working with people and smiles on their faces. And we were able to get that because we were one of the first in the area to do it. But the other thing then is let's market to it. And let's get everyone thinking that, we're out in the islands, whether you'd been to Biloxi before, didn't matter. Let's create our own little brand that people will instantly relate to. And so, from our attire, what the staff wore to, we had the river boats for a little while, but we instantly started building a barge that was allowed at that time. And you walked into that and you knew, we had palm trees. We had all sorts of wild colors. We had wild colors for our staff. We had great music. We wanted to pump in that atmosphere that, people, they got to know real well. And then we took good care of them. And like I said earlier to the last segment, and they were our friends. The Isle was the Mississippi Gulf Coast Casino. And even though we had lots of competition come on, we never lost those people. We took a look at our player status. We had a huge volume of people who came on a regular basis, and real proud of that.
One of the things that hit me as I was preparing for this is the number of people who I knew who went to work for the Isle of Capri, and I don't know that they ever left. I think there was a large number of employees that had been there for all the way through its existence as a casino. And I mentioned to you that I remember being in a meeting with you guys at one point where you were kind of giving us a feel for your branding strategy, and you had an internal branding strategy called Isle Style.
Isle Style.
Isle Style. And it was connecting the brand. You think about brand, you think about the emotional connection that people have to the brand that's usually demonstrated through the culture of the company and the way the employees buy into that and how they sort of, live the brand. You guys were serious about that, weren't you?
Yeah, we were. Again, we weren't going to be the biggest. In fact, we had our stand was we're not the biggest. We want to be the best. And the approach with the staff was, we're serious about you wanting to have fun. They look at you like, are you sure? As other places I've worked at, they're strict on you're going to follow all the rules and the regulations, but these people made a choice to come see us. Let's celebrate it. And they found out, the staff found out after a while, says, they really mean this. Let's have some fun. I never wore a coat and a tie. I mean, an open shirt collar. I was big with our logo. And I encouraged our staff. I said, guys, let's look professional, but every other casino around here, you'll know who the pit boss is, and who the manager is, because they're going to be in these nice suits and ties, and that's fine for their brand. But we wanted to bring something that's different. And it's funny, fortunately, I think, for our longevity, is that no one really wanted to copy what we were doing. And I said, that's great. I mean, you're making it that much more interesting and easy for us, to where we could really concentrate then on what the bread and butter is for the industry, is player development. Get to know people, be able to communicate to them, market to them, take good care of them. And that's finally what we were able to do, and make it profitable.
And it manifested itself in so many ways. I was, there's so many angles to look at it, but one that it comes to mind, because I was involved in lots of fishing tournaments over the years, is the Isle kind of embraced the fishing community, and Bobby Carter, what he's done, and still doing today, I might add, what he's done with the Mississippi Gulf Coast Billfish Classic, and what that has become for the entire Gulf of Mexico, and these tournaments, and how it's defined. I think there's a side effect to that, and that is that it reminds people of the location and where it is, and it's accessible, some of the best fishing water in the world. You guys were just hitting on a bunch of cylinders, weren't you?
Bobby was a perfect example of Isle style and what we're talking about. He was from the coast. He talked the language. He certainly knew fishing. We were right there at and the marina was right there on the point. And so we had all those things going for us. And yeah, we said, you make an investment on it. And yeah, some of these guys are they're going to nick you here and there, but we got them because we took good care of them, and they were our friends. I mean, Bobby could list of, there were 100 guys there. He knew all 100 of them. And he knew their particulars. He was just a master at it. And fortunately, we had other people like Bobby that worked for us that just had a blast. And, I'm not making it sound like, it's a 24/7 job. Really, I'm kissing my wife goodbye on Christmas night. And what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to walk the floor. I want to say hi to those guys that are working. That's just the kind of the job. But it was that kind of attitude. So look, if Hinkley's here on Christmas night where I'm not with my family, it means he's not with his family, but he's in the employee break room and walking the floor, talking to customers. Customers were there, because it was always pretty quiet on Christmas night, but it's just setting that kind of example. And there were people that I worked with, like Bobby and others. I mean, you guys remember Billy Creel. I mean, Billy was just, he was one of the big intangibles of what he could just do just about anything. And he did. And Billy would be there morning, noon, and night. He'd probably be with me on Christmas night as we're walking through the casino. That's how dedicated he was. So we just were fortunate to have that right from the outset. And I think we built on it to where we took it to other casinos. And that was just part of our success.
Billy Creel. Wow. Yeah. What a
Billy the Creel.
Almost instant connection to Biloxi and the culture of Biloxi and the cabals of Biloxi. Knew it. I mean, you knew how to operate because of his connections. One other comment about Bobby Carter. His son Robbie used to fish with my friend Terry and me in some of the Kingfish tournaments. And now Robbie is running tournaments all over the United States, from Boston to Louisiana, including tournaments still here in coastal Mississippi. But
tip off the old block.
It's amazing how fast time flies. But so many people have been touched by this casino in so many different ways. Okay, one of the things that was instantaneous, I alluded to it in the balloon story, but one of the things that was pretty evident immediately was that wherever you came from, you had embedded in you, in your heart and soul, that the success of the company was ultimately going to be better if you were more engaged in the community and you had employees more engaged in the community. You really set the bar high on how casinos should be involved in the community. Where did that come from? Was that something that was part of you when you got here, or talk to me about that?
You work in the restaurant industry, it doesn't get any more competitive than that. And, I learned early on, there's a guy in the Michigan, he's in the National Hall of Fame for restaurateurs. His name was Win Schuler, and I worked for Winston for 5 years. And he was a master at doing the things, the intangibles, like getting involved with the community, get them to where, they're not going to be a regular customer like every night, but they're going to recommend you, they're going to come see you. And that just kind of permeates down. That's as good a marketing as you can get. You can buy all the ads you want, but you start getting word of mouth from people that these guys are real. And that was just part of what we wanted to embody throughout the culture of the organization is, tell your friends to come down, bring your mom and dad down, be proud of what you're doing. Let us know. We used to meet all the time and say, hey, we're not perfect. What are we doing really well, but what should we be doing better? We fostered that kind of relationships as we kept on growing. And people bought into us as, I'm not going to get my head bit off if I got an idea. It's to me, it was just common sense. And the restaurant industry is what taught me a lot of that, because it is so competitive. You got to figure out, how am I going to get that guy to come over and see me, pull him away from the competitor down the road? And you learn a lot. If you can do that, you can run not only restaurants or casinos, you run any business.
We're visiting with Tim Hinkley, who back in 1992, August of 1992, opened the first dockside casino in coastal Mississippi. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this commitment to the community, how it manifested itself in so many different ways. And, what's Tim doing these days? We'll talk about that as well. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. I'm visiting with my friend Tim Hinkley. We work together in the community in so many different ways. But he was part of history here in coastal Mississippi when the Isle of Capri Casino opened in Biloxi. And it's a fascinating story. Hey, we kind of went right past this. We're going to come back to community here in just a second. But really, to go from dusty parking lot and seafood restaurant to suddenly you've got a casino opening in 4 months. That was happening all down the coast. This incredible Herculean effort of construction, around the clock construction. I'm still blown away that you actually pulled it off.
When there's a will, there's a way. That I didn't. I think my family came down. We were still living up north, and Dawn brought the kids down once or twice because I was working every day. She understood what it was. It was exciting. They loved the opportunity of living on the coast, and the kids still call it home. So, it was an adventure that I'll never forget. And so fortunate that we had so many people pulling for us. Yeah. And again, I had Billy, and Billy was like, I don't know. I could go on and on about people like him or Bobby. And there's just so many of that gang that joined us that wasn't any one person. I think we all understood, we're all in this together. We all had a common goal. And I'd look back at those times with just great fondness.
I want to make sure we just don't skate right past your involvement in the community, whether it be the Coast Chamber, United Way, or any number of other ways you contributed. But you were never too busy, and you weren't someone just to sit on the board. You became the chairman of the boards of these organizations. You wanted to make your mark, and you wanted to put your time in. That was important to you, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I wasn't going to do it unless it make a difference. It was my community too. And let's not, beat around the bush. I knew it was going to be good for business. If I could get out there and show, not so much, gee, come to my place, but get other people involved, show a little bit of leadership. give back, and not even, there are certain committees. I mean, I never talked about, gambling. Never talked about it. I talked about, construction or advancing forward. What can we do to help people? There were so many different boards that I sat on that, touched either so much part of Southern Mississippi, the entire state of Mississippi, or, I was on the American Gaming Association board of directors. That's a national and international group. So I enjoyed doing it, but I also knew that it was good for our business, good for contacts. It just was, to me, always the right thing to do. And I encouraged all of our employees, not just, my immediate staff, but I encouraged all of our employees to get involved. This is your home. Give back to it. And so many of them bought in. But I believe that it's good for communities. It's good for business. And I think it's good for people's well-being.
So, Tim, let's do the math real quick. How old were you when Casino in 1992 when Isle of Capri opened? That
would have been 37.
So you were just this young dude.
I had, as my kid said, I had burr hair, not gur hair. Brown hair, not gray hair. At least I still got some hair up there.
But you were this young dude, and you were making your mark in coastal Mississippi. It's amazing to look back. What's interesting, though, is the story sort of goes forward. You end up taking a corporate role, and the Isle of Capri continues to expand. You bought some Lady Luck properties. You did all kinds of stuff along the way. But the one thing that I really wanted to focus on for just a second is after Hurricane Katrina, when we formed the Governor's Commission on Recovery, Rebuilding, and Renewal, we held the charrettes at the Isle of Capri. We had, and it wasn't ready to be reopened yet. It was just you guys opened it up to us so we could have meetings there, around the clock meetings for a period of like about 7 days, where we were envisioning what were the infrastructure needs going to be, what were the FEMA requirements going to force on coastal Mississippi. All that information that came from that informed Governor Haley Barbour, who was spending all that time in Washington trying to figure out what the ask was going to be in terms of the tens of billions of dollars we were going to need to rebuild. But the Isle of Capri, the way you guys opened those doors to us to have those important meetings, we were able to stay in rooms. It was, in some cases we had concrete on the floor because, you had, the carpet had been damaged. But the role you played literally almost immediately after the storm was so important. What guided that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it was just doing the right thing. It's love of community, love of, your fellow neighbors. I mean, we went through the same thing that everyone else did. But it also, what better place would you want to have meetings as far as the destruction than being right in the middle of it? Not sitting off in some suite somewhere else. It's like, get down there. And I'm very appreciative that they took us up on the offer, because it was to think about. As I was going through notes and I went back to what Katrina was like, one of the things I think about is how fast we got back up to business. And I went through my numbers. And I think we were down for 3 months, and that was it. And this was what, a Cat 5, Cat 4.5, and to think that we were able to do that and put people back to work and have people come out and have some fun. Because you walked around the Gulf Coast, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of fun going on. I mean, people had lost their homes or they were severely damaged, and it was hot, and they had air conditioning. And all of a sudden, it gave them a place. I had people come back and says, it's good to see you. I just had to get out of the sun, and I want to come in a place where I could cool off a little bit and have a soda pop. So it's not just that we were a casino business. I mean, we were a local business that felt that. And it wasn't just in Biloxi. Every place we went, whether it was Natchez or the Quad Cities, all of the casinos that we ran, we were part of the community. And we wanted to make sure that all of our people who worked there understood that responsibility. And Biloxi served as, the model. I made sure every manager was going to run one of our places. They were down in Biloxi. And you say, look, you got a lot to live up to, and make sure you do it. But make sure you're doing it for something you believe in, and for all the right reasons for you, your community, your staff.
Well, we knew, man, we had so many people employed in the casino industry, and one of the things that Governor Barber kept saying over and over to us that, okay, you got to get people their jobs back, because they're not going to make a decision to stay in coastal Mississippi. They don't have a place to work. You got to give their kids a place to go to school. So, opening the schools as quickly as possible was a very important goal. And lastly, you got to give them a place to stay. And we focused on all of those things. In the midst of all these things that you and I are talking about, we were also working with the legislature to get own land gaming passed, so that casinos could make the decision to rebuild. It was in a remarkable time in coastal Mississippi's history. We may never see what we observed in that time ever again in the United States, with all the dots aligning around this disaster. It was truly remarkable to watch.
Yeah, I know it's been well chronicled, and I think for years to come, people will have a vehicle to be shown again, to not forget what it was like. But we just everyone had a role, and we stayed with our role of what we were good at, what we could get done. And you're absolutely right. And it was not just our business, but other businesses that came together in just insurmountable odds in some cases. It's a proud moment that I'm glad you brought up, because it was one of those that my family went through it. My kids were miserable. They live in a different place, and we were living like everyone else was. But they look back at it. If you're asked my girls, they'll never forget it. They were proud that they made it through. They were proud of what they were able to help represent, because they weren't idle either. Neither was my wife. Just like you guys, we were all in it together.
I'll look at my kids today, and I know what we went through. We stayed at our house on Back Bay and had 10-foot waves hitting my house. We were lucky to be alive. But I think about how it impacted them, and they grew up fast. So many of our kids across coastal Mississippi had to grow up fast. Hey, when you retired, you went back to work for the National Cherry Festival, and one of the things someone said that Hinkley went from having oversight of 10,000 employees and 18 casinos and hotel properties to a staff of 7. I can't wait to tell that story once you decided to sort of retire. What you did after that, we'll see after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. I'm having just a terrific conversation with an old friend, Tim Hinkley, who, he may have grown up north of Detroit, Michigan. He may be a native of Michigan, but he is forever part of coastal Mississippi. I would say coastal Mississippi, if you can go in and rearrange someone's DNA, his DNA got it rearranged as a result of the commitment and time he spent in coastal Mississippi. What a story it is. And, Tim, it amazes me how fast time flies, really, as we reflect on these things. I recall them, and it feels like yesterday, but it's a long history that you and I are reflecting on, isn't it?
Yeah, when you said, I got to have 31 years, and what's happened between now and then. But it was, especially the early part, you're bringing back stuff I haven't talked about in a long time. And when we heard we were going to do this, then Dawn and I started talking about it, and the kids started talking about it. It was a cherished time for our family. Something, like I said earlier, we'll never forget it. And like I said, I was just at the coast a couple of weeks ago, and I saw old friends, and that was a lot of acquaintances. And it's like we hadn't seen each other in like a day or two.
Right. That's the way it is with family, man. That's the way it is with family. Coastal Mississippi is definitely in your DNA. But you heard what I read when I went to break, when they announced that you were going to head up the National Cherry Festival. You went home. You were you actually got out, and you were 50 years old. I think I read that right. Around certainly early,
something like that. Yeah.
Early 50s. Similar to me as well. I decided to cut the cord and retire. but you didn't stay retired very long. You decided to go back and contribute back to your community. And it was fascinating reading about your contributions. In fact, one of the things they said about you, that when you interviewed for this job to come in and head up this cherry festival, you took the budget, you chopped it all to hell and back. You came back in and enthusiastically shared with them sort of how they could do things better and differently and fresher, et cetera. I'm not surprised they picked you. They probably were surprised they had you as a candidate, but what a great experience that was for you to be able to give back in that way, wasn't it?
One of my first meetings, I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is a balance sheet. I said, we're going to have fun doing this, but we have to do this on our own. And we got to figure out how we're going to make sure that not only balance the books, but make sure that we're growing for the future. And they bought in, and it didn't happen overnight. Fortunately, I'm from Michigan. My sister lived up in Traverse City. We lived up there. Now it's been over 30 years. So, I spoke that language too, and saw immediately that there was a lot of talent. It just needed a little bit of a push, sometimes a kick in the butt, a lot of nurturing and hugs and that kind of stuff, just like the Isle, really.
Yeah.
But getting the belief that, it's a 10-day festival. Well, we had over 500,000 people come to that 10-day festival. And a lot of the stuff that people do at a festival is free. And we had to figure out how we were going to change that business model to still be able to not only draw the people we've been drawing, but how we draw more and new people. How do we introduce this to so many other folks? And so by the time, I had a 3-year contract. I thought that'll be enough time to be able to have some fun with it, help it. Fortunately, we had a fella now who's in charge of the state tourism in Mississippi, Trevor, not Mississippi, up in Michigan. Trevor, who was, great. And I said, Dad, I've already got my successor. Let's see what we can do together. And it wasn't just the Cherry Festival. All of a sudden now, I think the Cherry Festival was in charge of, they also called themselves the festival company, because there's something in the wintertime, there's something going on in the fall, there's always something going on that helps the balance sheet, gets the community out there working together, having some fun, draws people from all over the place. So I'm really happy with that. Still live in the area, still got a lot of friends. I've just kind of set aside, Tim, you want to do this or that? It's just no.
Hey, but
I'll sit back and watch you guys.
Just like I didn't sit still. You didn't sit still either. You found a way to give back to the community. Hey, listen, in the short time we have left, one of the things I say here on this show all the time, and you're in a unique position because you've been around the U.S. all over, and you've seen what is in the heart and soul of coastal Mississippians. You've seen, when you hear the word resiliency, you've lived it, you understand it. That's what makes this place so special. When you reflect on what is in the heart and soul of coastal Mississippians, what does it mean to you?
Boy, you said a lot of the adjectives: resilience, love, respect, family, culture. There's so many things that are so true of that particular place, and we've had so many good friends that we've developed. We'll always keep. I know there'll be people that know me that are watching this. So, and like I said, if you were asked my 2 kids who have lived a lot of different places, when you ask them where's home, then they'll tell you it's the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Tim Hinkley, it has been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend. One of the things I love most about doing this show is the chance to circle back with people like you, people who mean so much to us. I'm glad to see you're relaxing down in Florida, and God bless you, my friend.
Thanks very much, Ricky. Thanks to everyone, your family, the whole Coast crew. Thank you, everyone.
You bet. This has been Tim Hinkley. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.